Hello to everyone in the great north. This is Lee Butterfield checking in from Atlanta, Georgia. I spent 4 hours on a bus today, which was horrifying. We stopped at a truck stop, which was disgusting. Pretty sure the toilets hadn't been flushed in 10 years and hadn't been cleaned in 20. Um, but then got into Atlanta, which is huge, 6 million people. Um, some major differences between the campus on Atlanta and the campus on Savannah. One of the big similarities is both campuses have their own basically public transportation shuttle line. So there are so many students that are a part of SCAD, 8,500 of them in Savannah, and then a few like close to 6,000 here in um, Atlanta. That they have their own bus system, and it goes from all of the dorms, which I can't call dorms. They're like freaking hotels, and they have walking paths on private property between there and the main buildings, and then they have shuttles that run to the other ancillary buildings like the theaters and the writing school and the viewing point. So 4 hours on a bus, that was basically miserable. And then we got into Atlanta and went directly after checking in at our hotel. We went directly to the basically the film and broadcast TV school here in Atlanta, which is a lot different than the one in Savannah. It used to be a full television studio, and it resembles one that if we were to tour KTVA, which we can arrange, it was a studio like that, only bigger. And SCAD bought it and has turned it into their broadcast TV and film school. And it is, oh, wow. Two things. One, we're doing a lot of what they're doing in that entire building in one room, but because we're doing it in one room, it's so difficult to manage and to get things done because we're always taking things down, putting things up. So it's separated out into a lot of rooms, a lot of space. There are some labs. All of these labs have Mac platforms and the PC platforms with the drawing tablets for animation and ideas like that. Pretty much heaven. Noah Turner, you would go crazy. You'd be so happy. Rooms full of these monitors, hundreds and hundreds of these stations, private editing bays in the building, which would be nice. I think a lot of you feel like sometimes you'd love to have a bay where you're all alone. And then really brilliant their sound engineering space, and really actually great ideas here. I've already texted Doc Johnson, let her know we need to start looking at some more grants to build a sound engineering space. But even before building that space, there are a lot of things we can do to start engineering our own sounds and start cataloging that. And that's exciting, one, because it's exciting to work for your films, and two, because it'll prepare you to be ready to go into a place like SCAD or wherever else you might want to go that has those studios, so you'll have more of an understanding of the workflow and how that works and how you fit in. Then we got to see some student films in a student showcase as part of the ATV Fest that's going on right now. Tomorrow we're going to ATV Fest. Unfortunately tonight, because of some other things we had planned, we missed the event at ATV Fest tonight, which was some little show nobody watches called The Walking Dead, and how that plays into SCAD students. But we saw some great films, some not so great films. I want to say, and I think you guys should be proud of yourselves. We were watching people in the upper level kind of master courses, and yes, there were films we saw tonight that were beyond anything that we have done so far. But you guys, as high schoolers, some of you are making films, and in the writing process itself, are quite mature compared to even people in their master's programs. And I'm proud of you for that. And I'm proud of I think your work is great. And I think the work we saw tonight was great. And where some of them may have been lacking in a feeling of reality or a feeling of maturity, they definitely made up for in skills. And as far as in camera skills and things like that, some people relied too heavily on camera tricks instead of story. And I saw a lot of things that we do that we could do better, and a lot of things that we're doing really, really well at.
What advice would you give if there are any freshmen in here, or there are undeclared majors coming into the degrees? What advice would you give them? We'll start with you, Karen.
So I think as humans, we all naturally have a comfort zone, and I think it's cool to know what that is, but at the same time, you don't really grow and you don't learn without stepping outside of your comfort zone. So I think it's really important to be aware of what that is and use that as your foundation, and then kind of just open yourself up to different opportunities, different relationships with people that you might not have initially gone after, or tried to befriend people and stuff. So I think it's important to always grow and seek out opportunities that are different than what you normally would be doing.
Jason?
Well, I had a very practical life plan coming out of undergrad. I was going to go follow in my father's footsteps and go into public relations. I loved photography, I loved film. But in my head it was always that unattainable dream, that thing that those people in Hollywood got to do, but was never really a thing. But as time went on, and I learned I hated public relations. I went to a still photo school, which got me starting to go into film, and now getting close to my 30th birthdays, going back to school and going into film. I would say that sometimes you have to throw out the sensible and go for that dream, because you don't really want to be 60 years old and regret anything. So
it's important to remember that film is hard. It's very challenging. It's also the greatest thing in the world. And for me, it's a matter of keeping that perspective that when things do get really challenging, really tough, and you just want to rip all of your hair out, that my family's a bunch of teachers and farmers and railroad workers. I could be digging ditches right now, and instead I'm having the opportunity to make film. And so to be so lucky and so blessed to get to do that, because not everyone's going to have that opportunity. So if it's something you're passionate about, take the opportunity if you can get it, because not everyone's going to have that chance.
I'll tell you the worst advice I got, which is, it starts from the basics. That's the worst advice I've ever gotten. Always shoot for the best you can do. Shoot for like the Hollywood film you want to see, and you want to do something like that. That's what you shoot for doing, and then problem solve your way to doing that. And I have a message for all the film students and film people who are going to be successful. Make sure you pay visual effects artists for that.
And I need to kind of lay it out for you. SCAD's expensive. And initially, I've had a big question coming to my mind, because initially the discussion has been that they admit students based initially on how they do in high school and GPAs. And I've pointed out that while I have some really strong GPA students, I also have students who really thrive and have a lot of talent that haven't always done so hot in traditional classrooms. And what do they have to do for that? And I talked to one of the professors today a little bit, who did discuss that when they see someone with really good raw talent and work ethic in that area that they're passionate about, they do take it into consideration. Now, to tell all of you something that comes up, and I'll bring it up when we're together again too, here's the big picture though. If your GPA is high and you put a portfolio in of really good work, which a lot of you are producing really good work, if you can do that, you actually get into the running for those higher end scholarships all the way up to like full tuition. And so if there are some of you that have never really worked so hot in a traditional classroom, maybe if a place like this is that important to you, it's time to find out what we can do to make sure you get those GPAs up so that your work and your GPA can work together to help you pay for a place like this. Because it's not just tuition, it's also living in places like this. And living in places like this is expensive. Now, Savannah's really good about having a lot of like the Savannah SCAD owns a lot of cafes and coffee shops and other things where students work and get paid, and that helps. And everything in Savannah you can walk to or take the shuttle to, and they have food in like every building. So that's great. In Atlanta, I've only seen the one place so far. It was brilliant. Everything in it was amazing. Tons of great ideas on what we can do to improve ourselves. But I really think that some of you that are thinking about big names like NYU and LA and all of those places, and you're looking at those as the options you have to go to. Look at what the costs are and the cost of living and compare that to a place like SCAD. What I've seen in SCAD Atlanta today is that people are working in TV and film and making connections big time because it's a requirement that SCAD professors have worked in the industries that they're teaching. So you're not just working with a professor who may have a lot of theoretical knowledge and a master's or a PhD in that area. They have those, but it's a requirement that they've worked specifically in the industry that they're teaching in. In fact, last night I had dinner with the guy who help do the graphics on like Surf's Up and the Beowulf film and like numerous other films that he was involved in that process. And everybody here has been involved in those types of things, which means they have connections that aren't always everywhere else. So yeah, I'll answer questions when I get home. This is vlog 3, not a lot, and I'm cutting it down because it's way too long anyway. But saw a lot of really cool stuff today and heard from some really cool people, and it was kind of neat.